whatever it is that you want, it's because you think that you want peace and you want happiness, and all of that is going to come from accepting where you're at and just acknowledging where you're at and just being present with where you're at and just being, and then going from there.
You are listening to the Learning to Love podcast,
where we teach you to live a happier, healthier life and manifest your desires. Self-worth, I think, is one of the most vulnerable topics to discuss because it really involves showing the most vulnerable parts of yourself. And I think that we have all experienced at one point or another negative self-talk, negative self-worth, and just feeling like we're putting ourselves down or we're not worthy or we don't deserve to have what we want. And I think that it's one of the biggest blocks to being able to get what we want in our lives and really experience the truest feelings of peace and joy and happiness and everything that we want. And so, yeah, I know that you and me have both struggled a lot with self-worth, and we both do still to this day, every now and then. And I think that it's something really good to talk about.
Yeah, I so agree. I love that part about linking worth to vulnerability. I think that that is so true. And I genuinely believe that self-worth is a journey, and it's something that you have to consciously choose. And when you really boil it down, it comes down to a journey of rediscovering yourself. It's a journey of connecting more deeply to not only yourself, but the universe. I also love that you linked worth to manifestation and how being disconnected from your own worth creates some really big blocks when it comes to trying to consciously create or trying to manifest something into your reality. One of the first things that really kicked off my journey of self-discovery and just connecting to myself and my authenticity, and all of that was done with the intention of wanting to connect to this feeling of worthiness more deeply. It started out with noticing that I did not feel very deeply connected to that feeling. I felt small and insecure and filled with self-doubt a lot of the time. And one of the first things that changed that feeling and created a whole new understanding of what worth meant to me was watching a video. I remember it was by Teal Swan, and she just simply defined worth. And she said, worth cannot be created nor destroyed. It's something that you are born into this life with, and you're born into this life with the same amount and you leave with the same amount. Essentially, it was this idea that you have worth. It can't be added to or taken from, and that's that. And for me, that was so mind-blowing. It was kind of like this reality check moment where I noticed that my beliefs of worth was that it's earned, it's achieved, it's something that you don't have but you can get. And it just felt like I was always trying to get it and I just never could. But when I heard this belief of, like, you have it, it's here. Oh, and by the way, you can't add to it. Like, you can't do anything in the physical world or get anything in the physical world that's going to make you have more of it. You just have it. It just felt true. It felt right. And it felt really empowering. And if you are wanting to connect to your self-worth more and build a better relationship with worth, you have to start having some more empowering beliefs and more self-serving beliefs about worth and what it means to you. And for me, that was a really great place to start. And that really set me off on my journey. And I'm sure we'll dive more into that later.
That's cool that you talked about how kind of where you started was just your beliefs about worth, because that's what I have here too. That's kind of where I started too. So when I originally started to work with my beliefs, it wasn't fully focused around worth. But it was just focused around just my beliefs in general about how I actually think the world works, how I actually think about myself, and the kind of thoughts that I'm thinking on a regular basis. And I think that one of the most important things that I learned was that a belief is just a thought that you think over and over again. And I think what's also really important to know is that your thoughts create feelings, and your feelings create an experience, whether that's like you reacting to something or you going and taking action to create something. Your thoughts that you are having on a regular basis have such a big impact on the kind of life that you end up living. And so for me, the journey kind of just started with reflecting on myself and my thoughts that I would have on a regular basis, and just kind of becoming super aware of where I was at in the moment, and just seeing like, wow, I have a lot of negative things going on in my mind on a regular basis, as far as just thoughts that I'm thinking about other people, about myself. And yeah, so just, I think being aware of your thoughts and recognizing that your thoughts are your beliefs, and recognizing that you have the ability to change your beliefs, and also recognizing that a lot of the times beliefs that we have are not intentionally placed there by ourselves, and recognizing that we can intentionally place new beliefs is kind of where I started. And yeah, it sounds like, we both were able to come to the same point of just recognizing that our beliefs play a significant role in the way that we feel on a regular basis, and whether or not we are able to feel worthy.
Yeah, it sounds like we've experienced a really similar start to this journey. I know we've both mentioned that poor relationship with our self-worth continues to manifest in our life, and it's kind of like this journey that we're on of catching that and becoming aware of that, and essentially just building up our relationship that we have with ourselves, which in return allows us to connect more deeply to our own worth. And it sounds like we both started out in a similar way, where we kind of had like this moment of awareness of where we're currently at. And that awareness involved recognizing that we're in a painful place in our lives. But it's not like that awareness is excruciatingly painful. It's terrifying and scary, but also it leaves you feeling a little bit lighter, because, at least for me, it gives me a sense of optimism or hope. It just kind of shows me that things can be different, and that things don't have to naturally be this way. Like, I am able to impact the way that I feel by choosing to explore new beliefs that are more self-serving. You and I sharing this similar pattern of becoming aware of where we're at, and then intentionally choosing to create those new beliefs is the way that a lot of people start out. And I think that to kind of churn that new belief that you have chosen, that you want to adopt as your new belief, into an actual belief, it's like you said, it has to be something where you're thinking it over and over again. And I think the universe actually gives you opportunities to do that. You don't have to go and seek those opportunities out and try to control and like force yourself to think those thoughts all the time. I think anytime you set the intention to have a new belief, or anytime you set the intention to grow or to try and manifest or attract something into your life, you're going to notice that different blocks start to come up. And those blocks are just kind of showing you where your growth is. And it's showing you where there is that gap in where you are and where you want to be in terms of your beliefs. And I think that when I run into those blocks, I take it as kind of like a moment for me to recognize what belief is being triggered, and then remind myself of that new belief that I have and that I want to be practicing. And then, like you said, that just turns into you expressing yourself differently.
Yeah, I like what you said about just kind of recognizing the blocks as they come up and, not trying to go and force yourself to have new beliefs or think new thoughts. And I kind of handle things the same kind of way where, yeah, I would set the intention to have this new belief and I would make that very clear what the new belief was. And then I would, just keep living my life and doing what I naturally do. And then by doing that, those negative beliefs would just come up. And then it's just a matter of getting on top of it as soon as you recognize that it's happening and kind of going in and deciding in that moment that you want to try to figure out what's happening so you could change the belief. But I think that's something that's really important to recognize when it comes to beliefs as well is the idea of fact versus story. Because we have certain things happen to us, or there are certain facts, things that are just completely true, and then we twist it into a story that is not necessarily true, but it's more just a perspective of a way of looking at the facts. And that perspective has a huge impact on the way that we feel. And that story that we tell ourselves and that perspective becomes habitual. It becomes our beliefs. And so I think if we could just recognize the difference between a fact and a story, for me, that's been a really helpful way to just kind of get on top of the negative beliefs that I have and just kind of transition into more self-serving beliefs. Because a lot of the times our negative beliefs are just stories. They are not actual facts. They are perspectives, and they are things that have been placed in our mind, whether it's from ourselves or from someone else. And when we recognize that, I think it's just a lot easier to change them from there. But yeah, one of the things I want to talk about is just some of the experiences that we've personally had with self-worth and self-doubt and just kind of some of the pain that we've experienced around that. And so, I know for me, a lot of the pain that I experienced around my self-worth kind of just happened when I was in school growing up. Most of the issues I had with my self-worth had to do with my physical appearance and my physical body. Specifically, people would make fun of me very often for my weight, for being skinny. I remember literally being in high school, freshman year on the football team, and it got so bad to the point that my football coach actually started teasing me about my weight and started calling me chicken legs in front of everybody. Then it kind of became a thing on my football team for everyone to call me that. And yeah, that was just really tough because it was already in my life up until that point, I've been teased so much about my weight. But just for an actual grown adult who's supposed to be our coach, our role model, for somebody like that to be putting me in that position was really, really tough. That, along with just everything else that happened that was connected to my weight, just really created a lot of self-doubt and self-rejection for myself and the way that I was, and making me feel like, I didn't deserve to be loved. And it's crazy how something as little as that can turn into a belief and a story of I don't deserve to be loved. But that's what happened for me. And what ultimately ended up happening is it led me into this place where I felt when it came to the people that I was romantically interested in, I never ever felt like I had a chance. I never felt like I was good enough. I never felt like I was worthy. And that ultimately led to me getting myself into a very, very toxic and unhealthy relationship where I was constantly being put down. I was constantly being made to feel like I was bad and wrong for everything that I was doing. And, I was allowing myself to basically be controlled by this person in a very unhealthy way because of the fact that I did not believe that I deserved love. And it wasn't like I was intentionally or like consciously thinking these thoughts of like, oh, I don't deserve love. It was more just like that was what was happening. And it had to do with, a lot of the struggles that I just talked about of being in school and having people make fun of me all the time. But ultimately what it was just the beliefs that I had about myself. And it took a really long time for me to realize that all of that was happening. But as soon as I did realize that all of that was happening and just kind of realized that these were just stories that I was telling myself in my head, as far as, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, that's when I was really able to kind of change directions and kind of start heading more in a direction where I was able to just kind of start intentionally thinking those thoughts that had to do more with my own self-approval and my own self-love, but also just intentionally choosing to surround myself with people who actually did see my worth and people who actually did see my value and people who did give me love and people who did support me and accept me. And that was one of the biggest things for me that helped me get through that really tough time. But yeah, what about you? What can you tell us about some of the pain that you might have experienced about self-worth?
For me, shortly after that moment of learning about this new belief where worth is just here, you have it, it can't be added to or taken from, it just is. After learning that, I remember shortly after going and buying myself some new jewelry. And it was like some really nice gold jewelry that I had like intentionally picked out. It was something that I felt so excited about because I felt like it had a really deep meaning. And I felt like it was just something that made me feel really connected to myself because it just felt like something that I intentionally picked out that had significance to me. And when I put it on, I felt that feeling of significance. And I just remember feeling like I was decorating my body. Like I felt like for the first time I was able to look in the mirror and view my body as this piece of art. And I just felt like I deserved to decorate it. And I deserved to have this way of expressing myself. And for me, that was really significant because, like you, I also received a lot of comments about my physical appearance growing up. But it was different because most of the comments that I was receiving was really positive. And I feel like saying that out loud or like hearing that, it would make you think that I should have like pretty high self-esteem. I should feel pretty good about myself. But I feel like always having my physical appearance be commented on made me feel really uncomfortable. It made me feel like I had to always look perfect. And I just felt like I wasn't always measuring up to that level of perfection that it felt like everyone was talking about. And also it made me feel really unseen. It felt like no one really knew me. It felt like no one really saw me. And yeah, that for me created beliefs of I'm not interesting or like I'm just not connectable. Like people can't connect with me. And then it also created some poor beliefs about my physical appearance. And so, yeah, just having that moment where I was able to just see how choosing to adopt one belief and practice one belief could lead me to this whole beautiful experience of choosing to decorate my body with jewelry and choosing to look in the mirror and see myself in this whole like new, vibrant way. That was so exciting for me, and that was something that really made me want to dive even deeper into this journey of getting to know myself and this journey of connecting with myself and this journey of choosing to be so aware. Like not in a selective way, not where I'm just choosing to be aware in the moments where it feels good to be aware, but like choosing to be aware of my darkness and my areas of growth and and the things that don't feel so pretty, so that I could look at those moments and notice what beliefs were present and choose new beliefs that felt more empowering. Like, all of that felt so exciting. And I just felt like I wanted to keep doing that. And for me, it's just kind of evolved into this just like excitement for personal growth. Like, I love the feeling of growing. And for me, that is something that I feel like connects me to me and my authenticity, is when I'm learning about myself. Like, I love the feeling of I've learned something new about myself. That to me makes me feel so confident. And it's something that gives me the feeling of being seen, which feels really healing.
Thank you for sharing that. I can tell that was definitely like a, very vulnerable experience for you to share. And I thought it was really cool when you talked about the experience of buying yourself jewelry in like a very intentional way and placing like a really significant meaning to that, because I think that's another thing that's super important on the journey of really coming into feeling worthy from a place of not feeling worthy. And when you can give to yourself in a very intentional way, and just in a very pure, loving way, then that is something that can significantly improve your self-worth. And so, because what it does is it really just shows you that you do deserve to have nice things. You do deserve to have what you want. You do deserve to feel love. And so, you don't always have to just kind of create those beliefs and then just wait for somebody else to come and fill that in for you. You can do that to yourself. You can give that to yourself. You can start to think those thoughts, and then you can also start to take those actions of just giving to yourself what feels like is something that you deserve, and doing it in a very loving way to show yourself that you are worthy and that you do deserve to have nice things and you do deserve love. And I think one more thing that I just wanted to mention about the whole idea of just self-reflection and just awareness is that idea that your negative thoughts and your negative beliefs are not something that you want to avoid. They're not something that you want to reject, because the whole purpose of self-worth is to accept yourself and to give yourself love and to show yourself that it's okay to be the way that you are. I think that even when it comes to negative beliefs that are not serving you, that you want to change, a good way to look at them is to just recognize that even those negative beliefs have value and they do serve a purpose, or at least they have served a purpose at one point in your life or another. And just kind of diving into just trying to understand them and why they might have come about, and just really going into just, self-reflection mode and just trying to understand rather than to immediately go into trying to change. And that's something that's been super helpful for me. And I think that that's super important, because if you just go straight into trying to change everything about yourself to try to make yourself feel more worthy, I think that that's going to be really hard, because we all have things about ourselves that we don't like and that are not pretty and not perfect and not polished. And I think if we can just acknowledge that and just kind of accept that and just show ourselves that that's okay, and then just try to understand, why we have certain beliefs, then it could just be a lot easier to move to the point where you are thinking more positive thoughts and feeling more worthy and more deserving.
I love being reminded of the lesson to not ignore negative feelings or negative thoughts. I think when you keep in mind the idea of duality, that everything has an opposite, so do your negative feelings and your negative thoughts. And when you choose to accept those feelings and thoughts, when you choose to move through them, you get to that other side, you get to the opposite. So if you're feeling grief and you choose to fully dive into that and accept it for what it is, you'll be met with the experience of love. Same with when you experience fear. When you fully surrender to those feelings, you're met with love. Like, you naturally rise up on the vibrational scale. That's just how it works. That is what I've experienced every single time I have dove into something that feels negative, something that feels like I want to reject it. When I meet it with acceptance, the opposite of rejection, I am always brought to a higher vibrational place. When I also reflect on anything that I've ever tried to create with force, anything that I've ever tried to change about myself with force, anything that I've ever felt like I wanted to manifest so badly because I hated where I was at, it didn't happen. Like, I could not create that change. And even if I did, it wouldn't have felt good. I don't know. I just think about issues that I've had with my skin that felt like the biggest problem ever, or issues with constipation, or just like me feeling like I really have to get a certain job. When I've just surrendered to whatever feelings that go along with having imperfect skin, for example. When I've just chose to let that be, and when I've just chose to love myself even though I have a pimple on my skin, that is when things start to change. It is not when I'm doing everything with the intention of trying to get rid of whatever it is that's in my experience. Like, that does not create what I want. Choosing to accept where you're at and just like relax and be in that space doesn't mean that you're going to be stuck in it. And I think that when you are relaxed, you attract. When you're relaxed, you attract what you want. And what I mean by that is, think about what is happening in your body when you are relaxed. Like, you're calm. Usually you're feeling something pretty peaceful. You feel safe. You feel accepting of yourself. You feel worthy. That is the vibrational place that people are in when they manifest. And when you're in a place of tenseness and rigidity, and you just feel like you want to like shrink yourself, and you just feel tense and small, like, that's not the place that people are in when they manifest. You manifest when your body is feeling relaxed. And when your body is feeling relaxed, you're likely feeling something more peaceful. You're likely feeling more accepting of yourself. And you're likely feeling something close to the feeling of worth.
Yes, I absolutely love that you brought that up, because I know that you and I both have experienced that same issue of trying to just force a change, or trying to force something to manifest that we want. And I think a perfect example for me to share is the example of me on my weight journey. Is like, I started out working out and going to the gym and trying to, have protein shakes and eat all these different kinds of foods with the intention to get rid of my body the way that it was, and with the intention to just escape and just like get rid of it and get rid of the bad, and like, I did it because I did not like myself at all, and because I wanted this thing. And the whole time that I was focusing on just trying to force the results because I didn't like where I was at, it just led to even more of that feeling that I was trying to get rid of. And it just really kept creating the same experience over and over again. And I was not feeling any better about myself, even though I was gaining weight and I was, becoming more to the type of physical appearance that I wanted to create for myself. And when I really started to feel good about myself is when I just started to accept myself the way that I was, and I started to just embrace where I was at and just accept the fact that things change, that I will change, that my physical body will change, and not try to rush the process, not try to force anything, but just go at the pace that things would naturally go at. That's when not only did I start actually seeing more results like on a physical level, but that's when I actually started to experience that feeling of like what I was trying to create, which was actual self-acceptance and actual self-confidence and peace and just happiness with where I'm at. And I think that that's what we all want. You know, at the end of the day, whatever it is that you want, it's because you think that you want peace and you want happiness, and all of that is going to come from accepting where you're at and just acknowledging where you're at and just being present with where you're at and just being, and then going from there.
Yeah. And I think we hear that. I feel like I've heard that often, like, just accept yourself where you're at. And then I'm kind of left with the question, well, like, how do I do that? How do I accept something that I feel so incredibly uncomfortable with, something that is so outside of my preference? And I think it comes back to what you just said. Like, maybe, yes, I want this perfect clear skin, or yes, I want this, house on the lake, or yes, I want, whatever it is that you want. It can be boiled down to you just wanting to feel loved. And I think when you're able to tap into some more positive beliefs about worth, beliefs like, I'm lovable right now, like I am worthy of love right now, when you are able to collect those beliefs and adopt those beliefs and practice having those beliefs, that is when you're able to tap into acceptance. And so I think the first step might not be, I'm going to accept this. I'm going to accept this the way that it is. It might just be reminding yourself, oh yeah, like I am lovable right now, the way that I am. I have this pimple on my face, but like I'm lovable with it. And I think that when you are able to relax and remind yourself that you are worthy of love, you're going to be able to accept yourself a lot easier. And I feel like another way that you can do that is just by diving into understanding yourself. If you're able to understand anything, it's likely that you're going to be able to love it.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I think that's something that we could also use as a tool to kind of help us love ourselves and accept ourselves with where we're at, is just the simple idea of recognizing that good and bad, or right and wrong, is completely depending on your perspective, and it is completely relative depending on how you look at it, and it is all 100% based on your perspective. And so again, something that you think is bad and wrong and terrible and ugly and gross, someone else might be able to look at it and think that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I love that. That is my favorite thing in the whole entire world. Like, we all have different preferences, right? And a lot of times our preferences come down to our perspective and the way that we view the world and the way that we look at things. And so, yeah, just keeping that in mind when we're thinking of ourselves, I think can really help us just accept where we're at. Because again, although you might think a certain way about yourself, I guarantee you there's somebody in the world who can either be the exact same way and then look at themselves in a positive light, or experience someone else being that way and look at them in a positive light. And yeah, it just all comes down to perspective. So just, there is no good and bad. There is no right and wrong. It's all just a matter of how you choose to look at things. And that is something that you can intentionally change at any moment. There's a really cool story that I heard that I always remember, and it's the idea of two people, and they're both standing in the exact same place, and they're both looking out a window, and there's a sunset, and one person is miserable and they're unhappy, and it's because the window is dirty, and they're just focusing on the dirty window, and they're saying, oh man, like that's such a gross window, like it's terrible, you know. And the person who's actually happy and feeling peace and enjoying their life is a person who's looking out the window, even though it's dirty, and they're looking at the sunset. They're both in the exact same moment, experiencing the exact same thing, but their perspective of the situation and what they're choosing to focus on is having an impact on the way that they're feeling and the way that they're experiencing life. And so I think that that's a challenge that I want to give to people, is to find a perspective that actually serves you. Find a perspective that actually feels good and that actually brings you closer to a place of accepting yourself and accepting others and feeling love in the moment that you're in.
Thanks so much for listening.
We really appreciate you for being here, and we'll see you on the next episode.